Hello, class, and welcome to week five's discussion on scholarly surveys. Before I get started, I want to say, according to course guidelines, historians must be honest and objective in their research and must be dedicated to a reasoned, investigative reconstruction of primary sources. This week, we were looking at scholarly sources on the American um, History and Life database, and I found three articles that I think would be good to pertain to my topic of interest for a possible dissertation topic of being women and the student activism movement. The first article I found was by Winnie Brines. It's actually a review of Sarah Evans' book Political Politics. Um, I like this. I like this source because it actually gave me the further source of Sarah Evans' Political Politics, which is what I will probably use towards my dissertation as it is a primary source. Um, Basically, Brines talks about how Sarah Evans, found um, the highlights of the organizations that Evans speaks of as being the ERAP, the SNCC, and the SDS. And this same idea from many of my other sources I found that, women were not held in high positions, that they were focused on more of a secretarial or women's duties at the time. So it doesn't really go into much detail as it is just a review, but I'm anxious to see what the actual authors opinions are after reading her book, The Political Politics by Sarah Evans. The second article I found was by Lawrence Whitners. It's a personal story of him being a professor at two different types of colleges. Hampton Institute was mainly African American college, and Vassar College, which was a women's college. Both he worked there during between 1967 and 1972, and he got involved with the politics of the resistance, the student activism, the civil rights, and eventually the women's liberation movement on the Vassar College campus. So he was kind of a professor, but he also didn't separate himself from the groups. He was more involved in those organizations than he was just a professor and standing by. Um, the last article I found was actually by Sue Katz. She was a freshman in Boston University in 1969, and helped start the feminist movement at the Boston University. The interesting thing about her is she was a lesbian during that time, and even being in the women's liberation movement, lesbians were not very well accepted. They kind of wanted to keep them separated. But she made a interesting theory that most people who research the women's movement do not speak of, and that is this idea of the mental health of these women in the movement, how they have to really dive deep in within themselves and escape the idea of fault. She does speak a lot of sexism and rape in her topic or in her article. Um, and so she really focuses in on this idea of the women's health, the mental health of the women, and what they had to overcome even just to decide to join an organization. Um, the Winnie Brines article is called A Review Essay, Sarah Evans' Personal Politics, and it's in the Feminist Study Journal. Lawrence Whitmer's article is a recollection of activism, Hampton Institute and Vassar College, 1967 to 1972. And that is in the 60s, a Journal of History, Politics, and Culture. And then Sue Katz's article is also in the journal, the 60s Journal of History, Politics, and Culture. And that title is Women's Liberation Explosion at Boston University, 1969 to 70. Thank you.